Thank you for stopping by the Life of Sassy and checking out this week's What's for Dinner. This week includes an Instant Pot, a slow cooker, and an easy weeknight dinner. If you like all things to do with food with a little bit of life mixed in, please consider subscribing to my channel and joining my YouTube family. I hope you enjoy. Now let's get cooking. Do you ever just completely have brain block on something, even when it's something simple? That's me right now. I went to upload last night's What's for Dinner to my laptop so I could start editing it. I didn't record the intro or the outro. Complete brain block. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to record them now instead of in a couple days when I go to edit the video. Last night I made a new to us recipe. I decided yesterday was just one of those days we needed a slow cooker meal. We needed something that at the end of the day dinner was going to be ready. So I went ahead and made Mongolian beef in the slow cooker. Let's go ahead and see how that was made. To make my Mongolian beef in the slow cooker, I have olive oil. That's the cup of baby carrots I prepped in my meal prep video, cornstarch. In that measuring cup, there is 3/4 of a cup of soy sauce and 3/4 of a cup of water. I have my beef strips, minced garlic, and some brown sugar. And in the middle is my crock pot base. Now I'm going to go ahead and put this all together. Here I have my slow cooker liner. I'm going to start by adding in 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Then I need half a teaspoon of garlic. I'm just using minced garlic we buy at Costco. Then I need 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar. Then the recipe calls for a cup of grated or shredded carrots. I had some baby carrots to use up, so during my meal prep, I didn't grate them, but I did go ahead and just slice them up. I probably have a little bit more than a cup there. I really underestimated how many baby carrots it would take to make a cup. And the last thing for my sauce, I combined in my measuring cup 3/4 of a cup of water and 3/4 of a cup of soy sauce. Now I'm just going to go ahead and give this a quick stir. The last thing we need to add to the slow cooker is our beef. We go ahead and pre-cut our beef into strips and store it in our freezer like that. So I'm just going ahead and taking the beef out of the sucker seal bag, and I'm going ahead and putting it in a baggie that has 1/4 of a cup of cornstarch. Now that I have all my beef in my Ziploc baggie, I'm just going to go ahead and close it up. And then I want to shake it around to get my beef strips coated in cornstarch. Now that my beef strips have been coated in the cornstarch, I'm going to go ahead and dump everything in here. You want to include the extra cornstarch as that's going to thicken your sauce. Now I'm just going to give this a quick stir to make sure all of the beef is mixed in with the sauce. Now I'm just going to pop a lid on this, put it back in the crock pot bottom. I'm going to cook it for 2 to 3 hours on high, or you can cook it for 4 to 5 hours on low. There we have it. My slow cooker is set to high. I have it on for 3 hours, and there is my beef mixture. Here is tonight's dinner. The other night I made rice and made a double batch knowing I wanted to make this meal. So that is just reheating in the microwave. And here is my Mongolian beef. I went ahead and cooked it for 3 hours on high. At about 2 hours when we checked it, we noticed the sauce was getting really thick and burning to the sides. So we went ahead, gave it a stir, but I also turned it down to low and let it cook for the last little under an hour on low. Once the rice is done in the microwave, I'm going to go ahead and serve it up. Here is tonight's dinner, my slow cooker Mongolian beef over white rice. This was a new to us recipe. I'm trying to get into using my slow cooker more. I use it all the time, but I tend to use it for meal prep, not necessarily during the week when I'm cooking for nightly dinners. So I'm trying to get into using the slow cooker more. I love my slow cooker. I don't know why I don't use it more. But with that being said, we really like this recipe, but we do need to make a minor tweak. We personally just found it really, really, really sweet. We will make this recipe again, but I will definitely be cutting back the sugar. It was just way too sweet for a savory dish for us. Another addition is I had planned on making broccoli or stir-fried veggies to go on the side. Time got away from me. It didn't happen. I think next time I would make sure to have another vegetable on the side. Although the recipe has the carrots in it, I just felt that it could really benefit from some more veggies. But all in all, we like this recipe. We will make it again. We're just going to reduce the amount of sugar that goes into it. Tonight I'm going to be making Instant Pot pork roast. This is one of those great all-in-one recipes. Everything goes into the Instant Pot and cooks together. I have made this recipe before and have made a few minor tweaks, but as always, the original recipe is going to be posted down below for you guys to check out. Now let's get you turned around and I'll show you what I need to make this recipe. What I'm going to be using to make the Instant Pot pork roast, I have some russet potatoes, salt, pepper. Here I'm using pork chunks. I'll explain that once we start cooking. I have some baby carrots. The original recipe calls for 2 large carrots. I'm using baby carrots instead. I prepped those during my meal prep. Then I have some button mushrooms. The original recipe calls for cremini. I don't have cremini, so we'll sub in the button mushrooms. I need some minced garlic, soy sauce, chicken broth, olive oil, and balsamic vinegar. Now let's get cooking. The first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and peel and chop my potatoes. The recipe calls for 2 large russet potatoes. I just have some small potatoes left over that need to be used up, so I'm going to be using probably about 6 or 7 of these small potatoes. I'm just going to go ahead, peel them, and then cut them into about 1-inch chunks. Have my potatoes cut up. I'm just going to set these off to the side, and next I'm going to do my mushrooms. I've gone ahead and cleaned my mushrooms. Now I'm just going to go ahead and chop them up. And there we have our mushrooms done. I'm just going to set all of this off to the side, and next we're going to get ready the sauce mixture. Now I'm putting together the sauce. We have made this recipe before and we prefer it to be a little bit more saucy, so I'm going to go ahead and double the recipe here. I'm just going to put in 2 cups of chicken broth, and to that I'm going to add in 4 tablespoons of soy sauce. And there we go, that's ready to go. I'm just going to go ahead and set that off to the side, and now I can set up my Instant Pot and start cooking. I've gone ahead and put my Instant Pot on the counter, and I'm just going to go ahead and turn on the saute feature and wait for it to get hot. My Instant Pot's now hot, so I'm going to go and pour in between a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of oil. You just want to make sure the bottom is coated so your meat doesn't stick. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in my pork. And I'm just going to give that a stir. Hopefully you can hear me. Now I'm just going to go ahead and add in about 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt and pepper. And I'm just going to let my pork sear off. The original recipe does call for you to use a pork roast, not pork chunks. What you would do is you would take your pork roast, put it in your Instant Pot, sear it on all sides, remove it, cut it into slices, and then after you saute your vegetables, put the slices of pork roast back in. I just prefer to use the chunks because now this way I'm not cutting into partially cooked meat, and it just makes it a little bit quicker. Yes, it does make this dish more like a stew, but you still get all of the same great flavors. You don't have to fully cook the pork because you're going to pressure cook this. Now, also, since I'm using button mushrooms instead of creminis, I'm not going to add them right yet because they will cook down a little too much. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and add my carrots. And now I'm going to add in my garlic And I'm going to let that cook down for a minute or two. That has been cooking down for about a minute. Now I'm just going to add a couple dashes of balsamic to deglaze my pan. And now I can add in my mushrooms. Now you just want to make sure that you scrape all of the little brown bits off the bottom of your Instant Pot, or else you may get a burn notice. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my saute feature. Now I'm going to go ahead and add my potatoes on top, but I'm not going to stir this anymore. Oops, drop the whole thing in. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my chicken broth and soy sauce mixture. Just make sure everything is submerged as much as possible. Now I'm just going to go ahead and put my lid on. Make sure the vent is to ceiling. And now I'm going to go ahead and pressure cook this for 5 minutes. And then you want to do a 10-minute natural release. So there, I've got it set to 5 minutes. We'll let it come up to pressure, and when it's done, I'll be back. You're supposed to let it naturally release for 10 minutes. Mine went a little long at 13, so I'm just going to go ahead and move the valve to venting. Okay, there we go. Now, the original recipe calls for you to take everything out, turn on the saute feature, and use water and cornstarch to thicken this. I forgot to bring this out earlier, but I use Velveteen. I know most people haven't heard of this, but my family has always used it. It's what I know. So I'm just going to put it on saute. Wait for it to heat up, and once it starts to heat up, I'm going to add the Velveteen. How much Velveteen you use varies every time you make something, but I'm just going to wait for this to come up to a bit of a boil. I'll start adding Velveteen and I'll thicken it that way. Okay, it started to come up to a boil, so I'm just going to add some Velveteen. And now I need to let it come back up to a boil and let it lightly boil. You don't want a hard boil, but let it cook for about a minute to see if it's thick enough or if I need to add more Velveteen to it. Okay, that's definitely thick enough, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit cancel, but I'm also going to grab a pair of oven mitts and just take the whole center out. And there we have it. There is my Instant Pot pork roast done, and I'm going to serve it with homemade potato buns. Here is tonight's dinner, my Instant Pot pork roast with a potato bun on the side. Tonight's dinner was the Instant Pot pork roast, although mine was more like a stew. Now, when you looked at the picture of me serving this, if you went, that looks a little bit different, you're right. A few factors played in here. Originally, I had made that meal in the afternoon with the thoughts of reheating it for dinner because I thought dinner time was going to be rushed that night. We had a few things going on. Well, things changed and we actually didn't eat this meal until 2 days later. With that being said, I own it. I did it. I over-thickened that gravy when I made it. Had we have been eating it right away, it probably wouldn't have been an issue, but because we put it in the fridge, it really thickened up. Now, normally when I reheated it, I would have added a little bit of chicken broth to it to thin it out a little bit, but I used the last of my open chicken broth in the recipe to make it, and I didn't have another open one in my fridge. Yes, I have more in my pantry, but I don't have anything else in my meal plan for this week that calls for chicken broth. So I didn't want to risk having to throw out the chicken broth because we didn't use it. So we went ahead and ate it as is. Even with the over-thickened sauce, this recipe is amazing. That combination of the chicken broth, soy sauce, and my much-loved balsamic vinegar, I'm a sucker for anything balsamic, it just gives this recipe such a rich sauce. The flavor is amazing. We love it. And I love the fact that it is a one-pot meal. You put your pork, your potatoes, your carrots, and your mushrooms, and the sauce all in the Instant Pot. It does all of the work, and you have dinner. Although I did serve mine with homemade potato buns. That video will be coming next week on how I made those, but that's optional. I've served this recipe before without the potato buns, and it is a one-pot dinner. Now, as you all noticed, I used pork chunks instead of a pork roast. One, using the pork chunks just makes this meal that much easier because now I don't have to take a pork roast out and I don't have to cut it up. For some people, you might be thinking, not a big deal. For me, I'm a little OCD when it comes to raw meats. I tend to use quite a bit of bleach when I deal with raw meats. That's why in a lot of my videos you see that our meat is prepackaged, because it really was the difference when I was working in the office a lot of nights. Having that package I could cut open and dump in versus having to cut up meat was the difference between me cooking and me ordering out. Because if I have to cut up the meat and put it on a cutting board on the counter, I then bleach the counter, I bleach the cutting board, I bleach the knife. So for me, having it in a package I can just cut the top off of and dump it in, it just helped my OCDs when it comes to dealing with raw meat. And oddly, I don't mind doing it when we do it in bulk because I get everything done and then can just bleach everything down at once. So for me, just not having to deal with that partially cooked roast, not to mention I'm not the best at slicing a partially cooked roast. There's something between the seared outside and the raw middle. I can't get thin slices. That's a me problem, I know. But yeah, using that pork chunks just makes this meal that much easier, and the flavor in it is amazing. You still get all of that wonderful pork flavor. There is no difference that I can tell between using the roast versus the chunks, because the chunks are just off of a pork loin, which is what I would use to make this recipe. So we love this recipe. We'll continue to make it. I should actually make it more often, but like anything in my Instant Pot, I go through little spurts. I use my Instant Pot, I don't. I'm trying to change that. I have challenged myself to use the Instant Pot more, but this is definitely a recipe we will continue making. And yes, I will continue to use the pork chunks instead of the pork roast. Tonight I'm going to be making lasagna zucchini boats. I don't know why, but I find that really, really hard to say. This is about my third take. But this is a recipe I came up with. I'm trying to replicate something I already make. I make lasagna zucchini roll-ups. They're really good. We love them. They're a great vegetarian option, but they're very time-consuming to make. They're definitely a weekend meal and a weekend when you have a couple of hours you can spend in the kitchen. I love the fact that they're vegetarian. We love the flavors in them. So now I'm trying to recreate something that is more of a weeknight meal. Let's go ahead and get started, and I'll show you the ingredients I'm using. Here's everything I'm going to use to make my lasagna zucchini boats. I'm going to use olive oil, ricotta, zucchini, minced garlic, freshly grated parm, basil, parsley, Italian seasoning, onion powder, garlic powder, pepper, salt, grated mozzarella, and some tomato sauce. We make ours in bulk and freeze it, but you can also use a jar sauce for this recipe. I have my oven preheating to 350 degrees. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put together the mixture that I'm going to brush on the zucchini. I'm going to add about a tablespoon of olive oil to this little dish. Then I'm going to go ahead and add about a teaspoon of garlic. Then I want to add probably about 2 teaspoons of, no, make it 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning. And then I'm just going to add about 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. And then all I want to do is mix this all together. And I'm going to set it off to the side until my zucchini are ready to go in the oven. Here I have 2 zucchini. I chose 2 that were a little bit on the thinner side because they'll cook up nicely. I'm just going to go ahead and cut off the ends. Also, if your zucchini have any marks on them like mine do, just go ahead and slice those out. Now I'm just going to go ahead and cut each zucchini in half. And then you just want to scrape out a little bit of the center because that's where you're going to put your filling. I'm just going to go ahead and discard the scrapings from the inside of the zucchini. I won't be using them. I have my zucchini here on a foil lined baking sheet. Now I'm just going to go ahead and spread that olive oil and garlic mixture on the inside. And now I'm going to go ahead and flip them over. I'm actually going to cook them with the flesh side down so that any moisture that comes out of them goes on the baking sheet and doesn't sit in the middle of the zucchini where we scraped it out. And now I'm just going to go ahead and add some to the top. Once my oven's done preheating, I'm going to go ahead and pop these in and bake them for about 10 minutes. You want to bake them without the filling for about 10. Depending on the size of them, you might have to go as long as 15 minutes just to get them a little bit soft. Otherwise, they won't cook all the way through once you put the filling in. Now I'm going to go ahead and put together my ricotta filling. Since I'm only doing 2 zucchini, I'm going to put about 1/4 cup of ricotta in my bowl. If you were doing more zucchini, you would adjust as required. Next, I'm going to go ahead and put in a pinch of salt. It's probably a little less than 1/8 teaspoon. I'm going to go ahead and add the same amount of salt. Then I'm going to add about 1/2 teaspoon each. Oh, there's my oven ready. Let's go ahead and pop in my zucchini. Sorry, as I was saying, I'm going to go ahead and add in about 1/2 teaspoon each of onion and garlic powder. Then I'm going to go ahead and add in about 1 teaspoon of parsley, 1/4 teaspoon of basil, about 1.5 teaspoons of Italian seasoning, and lastly I'm going to go ahead and add in about 1 to 2 tablespoons of freshly grated parm. Now I'm just going to go ahead and give that a mix. And now I'll set this off to the side until my zucchini come out of the oven. While I wait for my zucchini to finish, I've got my baking dish here. I'm going to go ahead and spray it with some cooking spray. And then I just want to go ahead and put a layer of tomato sauce in the bottom. We make this in big batches in our slow cooker and freeze it. If you don't make your own tomato sauce, just use your favorite jarred sauce. And now I'll set this off to the side until the zucchini come out. My zucchini have been in for about 10 minutes. I'm just going to go ahead and set them on the stove. Here I have my pan I put my tomato sauce in. I'm going to go ahead and lay each piece of zucchini in my pan. Now I'm going to go ahead and fill each of my zucchini with the ricotta mixture. There we go, the ricotta mixture has been added. I wish I had have thought of this earlier, but what would have been really great was if I had have put that in a piping bag or a Ziploc baggie and just cut off the corner to use as a tip. Now I'm just going ahead and topping each one with a little bit more tomato sauce. I do have a little bit of tomato sauce left, but I don't want to put too much on them, so I'm just going to go ahead and save that. We'll use that for something else. And now I'm going to go ahead and top these with a little bit of grated mozzarella and some freshly grated Parmesan cheese. And now I'm just going to go ahead and pop these in my 350-degree oven. And I'm going to let those bake off for about 30 minutes. Zucchini boats have been in for 30 minutes. I'm just going to leave them here and let them cool a little bit, and then we can serve up dinner. Here is tonight's dinner, my lasagna zucchini boats with cheesy garlic naan and a Caesar salad. Tonight's dinner was the lasagna zucchini boats. I don't know what it is about that title. It just does not roll off the tip of my tongue. I really have to think about it when I'm saying it, and I'm not sure why. But with that being said, this recipe did come to mixed reviews in my house. I personally loved it. It was exactly what I was looking for. The flavor was amazing. I really liked what that garlic mixture I brushed on the zucchini before I roasted it gave the zucchini in flavor. And dare I say it, I personally prefer the boats over the roll-ups, and there's a couple reasons for that. The first reason was the ratio of the filling to zucchini. In the boat, I found it to be perfect. Also, I like the fact that in the boat, the zucchini still had a little bit of crunch to it. I'm not somebody who likes my vegetables fully cooked. I like them to have a little bit of a bite and a crunch. So I really appreciated that in this recipe. With that being said, when I asked about making this again, the comment I got back was that the zucchini still had too much moisture in it. I personally didn't feel that way, but that was the comment I got. So I gave this some thought, and I think I have two options. One, I could try roasting the zucchini longer. I have found some zucchini boat recipes for different styles of boats where they roast it for up to 20 minutes before they put the filling in. So that would be an option. My only concern there is I think I would lose that bite in the zucchini, which is what I really liked. The other option is to salt the zucchini, which is actually what you do when you make the roll-ups. When you make the roll-ups, you cut them paper thin on a mandolin and then you salt them, draw out some of the moisture, and then make the roll-up. So my thought was, what if I cut the zucchini, hollow it out, salt it, let the moisture come out for about 15 minutes, and then add the garlic mixture and roast it off. I'm thinking that's the approach I'm going to take because I love this recipe. I want to make it again. I would love to see it become part of our dinner rotation, but for that to happen, it needs to be a unanimous yes. So I'm not giving up on this recipe. I will find a way to tweak it and hopefully put it in our dinner rotation. I would love to have something like this that's vegetarian that we can toss in there, because I have found recently we're not making as many vegetarian options, mainly because some of the ingredients we used to use aren't as readily available or have gone up in pricing, so we don't buy them as often. So I'm going to keep working on it, but I personally love this recipe. I would make it again 100%, but I will see if I can draw out some of that moisture so that my household becomes a unanimous yes on this recipe. And there is what we had for dinner this week. We had a slow cooker meal, an Instant Pot meal, and trying to remake a household favorite into something that can be made for a weeknight dinner. I'm hoping to have more Instant Pot and slow cooker meals coming your way. I really am challenging myself to use the Instant Pot and slow cooker more often as well. I need to start using my air fryer more. I love these kitchen gadgets. I need to use them more, and I will take you on that journey as I start to expand my horizon. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you like all things to do with food and a little bit of life mixed in, please consider joining my YouTube family and clicking on that subscribe button below. And if you want to make sure you know every time I post a new video, go ahead and click that bell, and YouTube will notify you every time I post a new video. Thank you for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next week with my potato bun recipe and another What's for Dinner. Bye everyone. Have a great week.